He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vishal Smanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Titanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we'll begin on text 32, page 248 in the temple. Sanskrit and English together. Text 32. Evam bahuvida yagya vitata brahmano mukhe karmajan viditan sarvan evam gyatva vimokshase. Translation. All these
different types of sacrifice are approved by the Vedas, and all of them are born of different types of work. Knowing them as such, you will become liberated.
Text 33. Shreyan dravyamayad yagyaj jnana yagya parantapa sarvam karma kilam partha jnane parisamapyate. Text 30. O chastiser of the enemy.
The sacrifice of knowledge is greater than the sacrifice of material possessions. O son of Pritha, after all, the sacrifice of work culminates in transcendental knowledge.
Text 34. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Just try to learn the truth
by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth.
Text 35. Yajkatvana punar moham evam yasasi pandava ena bhutanya sheshani drakshasyatman yato mai. Translation. And when you have thus
learned the truth, you will know that all living beings are but part of me, and they are in me and are mine.
Text 36. Api ched api apebhya sarvebhya papa kritamaha sarvam jnana pladvenaiva vijinam santarishasi. Translation. Even if you are considered
to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries.
Text 37. Yataidang si samidhognir pasmasat kuruterjuna jnanagni sarvakarmani pasmasat kurute tata. Translation. As the blazing fire
turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities.
Text 38. Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate tatsvayam yoga samsiddha kalena atmani vindati. Translation. In this
world, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism, and one who has achieved this enjoys the self within himself in due course of time.
Text 39. Shradhava labhate jnanam tatpara samyatendriyaha jnanam labdva param shantim acharena adhigacchati. Translation. A faithful man
who is absorbed in transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace.
Text 40. Agyascha shuddhadanascha sangsayatma vinashyati nayam lokosti na paro asukam na shayatmanaha. Translation. But ignorant and faithless
persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness. For the doubting soul there is neither happiness, For the doubting soul there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next.
Text 41. Yoga sanyasta karmanam jnana sanchinna sanshayam atmivantam na karmani nibadnati dhananjaya. Translation. Therefore,
one who has renounced the fruits of his action, whose doubts are destroyed by transcendental knowledge, and who is situated firmly in the self, is not bound by works, O conqueror of riches.
And finally, text 42. Tasmad jnana sambhutam ritstam jnana sinatmanaha chitvainam sanshayam yogam atatishto tishta bharata. Translation. Therefore, the doubts
which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight.
Back to text 32. So we can read the translation and purport.
All these different types of sacrifice are approved by the Vedas, and all of them are born of different types of work. Knowing them as such, you will become liberated. Purport. Different types of sacrifice, as discussed above, are mentioned in the Vedas to suit the different types of worker. Because men are so deeply absorbed in the bodily concept, these sacrifices are so arranged that one can work either with the body, the mind, or the intelligence. But all of them are recommended for ultimately bringing about liberation from the body. This is confirmed by the Lord herewith from his own mouth.
Okay, next one.
O chastiser of the enemy, the sacrifice of knowledge is greater than the sacrifice of material possessions. O son of Pritha, after all, the sacrifice of work culminates in transcendental knowledge. Purport. The purpose of all sacrifices is to arrive at the status of complete knowledge, then to gain release from material miseries, and ultimately to engage in loving transcendental service to the Supreme Lord, Krishna consciousness. Nonetheless, there is a mystery about all these different activities of sacrifice, and one should know this mystery. Sacrifices sometimes take different forms according to the particular faith of the performer. When one's faith reaches the stage of transcendental knowledge, the performer of sacrifices should be considered more advanced than those who simply sacrifice material possessions without such knowledge. For without attainment of knowledge, sacrifices remain on the material platform and bestow no spiritual benefit. Real knowledge culminates in Krishna consciousness, the highest stage of transcendental knowledge. Without the elevation of knowledge, sacrifices are simply material activities. When, however, they are elevated to the level of transcendental knowledge, all such activities enter onto the spiritual platform. Depending on differences in consciousness, sacrificial activities are sometimes called karma kanda, fruit of activities, and sometimes jnana kanda, knowledge in the pursuit of truth. It is better when the end is knowledge.
If someone sacrifices material possessions for some cause, that's the beginning. But if he has transcendental knowledge, then he will sacrifice his possessions for that ultimate cause, that transcendental cause, because that will bring him not just a material result. If it's acted on the level of karma, in other words, one is trying to get some return, wants to enjoy his senses, then he'll have to take the reaction for that, good or bad, or mixed. But if he acts and makes sacrifice with transcendental knowledge, then there's no material reaction. He doesn't have to take the reaction, either good or bad, for that. Because it won't be good or bad. There'll be no good or bad reaction because it's transcendental. It will be purely a spiritual activity. And that's the goal, is to get to that platform where one can, all of his activities, everything he does, is a sacrifice on the platform of transcendental knowledge. And wherever he speaks, it's practically as good as the Vedas, because he's speaking on the platform of Vedic knowledge. Just like Srila Prabhupada, he spoke so many things on morning walks and in classes and in room conversations, and interviews, and the devotees were very eager to record it all. Someone might say, well, why do you want to record all that? Just read the scriptures. But hearing a self-realized person speak practically on any topic will bring a transcendental result, because he's seeing things from the transcendental platform. He's engaging his mind, his words. Iha yasya harer dasye karmana manasa gira. Nikilas vapi avastasu jivan muktasu uchte. One who engages his harer dasye karmana, his actions, manasa, his mind, karmana manasa vacha, and his words are engaged in transcendental topics, he's considered liberated, even while in this material world. And that's exactly what is described in the scriptures, is exactly what we perceived in association with Srila Prabhupada, is that he was liberated and he brought the spiritual truth, the spiritual atmosphere, wherever he went. So that place became purified. Tirtha tirvanti kurvanti. Wherever a saintly person goes, sadhu, he makes that place into a tirtha, holy place. Like if you go to New York sometime, you can go to Tompkins Square Park, and there's a tree there, has a sign that says, this is the tree that the Swami A.C. Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada sat down and chanted when he first came to America. The Hare Krishna movement was begun from that tree, in a sense. So how is that? It's just an ordinary tree. So many trees in New York. Why that one? That one became special because it was in contact with Krishna through his representative, through the sound vibration. So that tree is special. In India, there are many special trees, and they don't cut down trees very easily in India, especially when they're on a temple or in a holy place. It's not it's not very customary to cut them down because they consider them holy trees, having been part of pastimes of the Lord or his devotees. Anything in relationship, anasakta shivashan, yataram upayunjita, nirbandha Krishna sambandhe, yukta vairag muchate. Anything in relationship with Krishna regains its original spiritual identity. Just like we may use some metal to make a stand for a microphone. The metal then is now being used in a transcendental way, so it actually becomes transcendental. Like if you put an iron rod into a fire, it acquires the qualities of the fire, and then it can act like fire. So Krishna, a pure devotee, he sees Krishna everywhere. Everything he sees, he actually sees Krishna because it's connected to Krishna, and he knows how to see everything in that way. Premanjana charita bhakti vilochanena santak sadaiva hridayeshu valokayanti yam shama sundaram achinta gun swarupam govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. He knows how to, he's seeing with the salve of love of God. When one is in love with a person, then everything reminds him of that person. And so this is Krishna consciousness. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I'm the light of the sun and the moon. I'm the original taste and water. I'm the fragrance of the earth. So in this way, whenever we see the sun, the light of the sun, we can think of Krishna. That's Krishna. This is the beginning stage. Krishna gives us some easy ways to begin how to see him, because we don't have transcendental vision at the beginning stage. So we see him in the sunlight, and we see him in drinking water. And then, as we go further, we can see him in his form, in his personal form. In the beginning, it's more or less his impersonal form. We're seeing his energies. Just like if someone's working for a big company, he sees the energy of the owner first. He sees the buildings, he sees the production, whatever materials are produced there, he sees that. He may see the car, the automobile of the owner, before he even sees the person. He's already appreciating the person because of his energy. The gardens are nice, everything's well organized, clean. So he's already impressed. He's heard the reputation. Then when he meets the person, then he's impressed by that personal form and the other characteristics that the person has. So people who think that there's no personal God, they're not very far along on the spiritual path. They're just in the beginning stage. They can appreciate God in nature, or sometimes they prefer not to acknowledge a personal God even. They just they don't feel comfortable recognizing that there's a person who could be so amazing. Just imagine if there were a person. You could say like this to the scientists. Say, okay, I know you don't think there's a person. And maybe there's not. We'll concede that. Perhaps there's not. But if there were, how intelligent would he have to be to have worked out all these things with with all the intricacies of the laws of nature, how they work, how one species interacts with the same species, how they reproduce, how they digest, how they change. And then there's the things we can't even conceive of right now, and that is that there's a soul inside each living entity, and the soul is a particle that never ceases to exist. For that which is eternally is existing, it never vanishes. There's no death. Even the things that we see every day are inconceivable. We can't really understand them. How does he make the sun revolve around the sky and keep burning and keep its shape? Try doing that. Try make some burning thing that just keeps fueling itself. How is it fueled? And it keeps going and keeps its shape, and it's a perfect line. It gives off the exact amount of heat it's supposed to. So one who's a little bit, shall we say, open-minded, he'd have to admit that if there were a person who had worked out everything and this is all going on, that person would be amazing. That's Krishna. That's Krishna consciousness. When one doesn't just take it lightly, but he takes it very seriously. Yes, there is such a person. And who is it? It's Krishna. How do you know it's Krishna? We have evidence, so much evidence. What's that evidence? When Krishna, even evidence from 5,000 years ago when Krishna appeared on earth and he displayed so many pastimes, this is not just hearsay, it's recorded by the greatest historian of the time. Not one historian, also we have Gargamuni, another great historian. These are exalted scientists, philosophers of pure conduct. And there's so many eyewitnesses. So there's sufficient proof or evidence to convince someone who is, like I said, a little thoughtful and open-minded, that there is such a person. There's only one person. It's not like there could be many. There's only one who has this capacity. Others, like demigods, have some of the capacities, just like we have some of the capacities of God. As he can see, we can see. As he speaks, we speak. We do many things like him, but not on the level that he does. And the demigods can't do it either. Brahma and Shiva, they have more than we do, more abilities and more energy than we have, but can't compare it to Krishna's. Krishna is simply incomparable, asamurdva. No one is equal to or greater than him. And then everything makes sense. Then there's a purpose behind the universe. Otherwise, if you ask someone who doesn't believe in God, who's an atheist, what's the purpose of it all? He'll just give some, just to enjoy your senses, just enjoy life. But that, you want to enjoy life, but so many animals have to go, and they have to go to the slaughterhouse so you can enjoy life. It doesn't make sense. And you're enjoying, and then what happens after death? We don't know. What happens before death? They don't know. Whereas when you take the Krishna paradigm, everything fits perfectly. It makes sense. Where is the soul? Where have all the souls been? They've existing eternally. They've been in different species, different bodies. And then what's the goal? The goal is to go back to the spiritual world. There's another parastasmat bhavonya vyakta vyaktat sanatana. There's another world, the spiritual world, superior world, that is never destroyed. It exists even when all in the material world is unmanifest, or when it's manifest, the spiritual world always remains manifest. Next text, or continue where we left off.
Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. Purport. The path of spiritual realization is undoubtedly difficult. The Lord therefore advises us to approach a bona fide spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession from the Lord himself. No one can be a bona fide spiritual master without following this principle of disciplic succession. The Lord is the original spiritual master, and a person in the disciplic succession can convey the message of the Lord as it is to his disciple. No one can be spiritually realized by manufacturing his own process, as is the fashion of the foolish pretenders. The Bhagavatam says, Dharmam hi sakshad Bhagavat pranitam. The path of religion is directly enunciated by the Lord. Therefore, mental speculation or dry arguments cannot help one progress in spiritual life. One has to approach a bona fide spiritual master to receive the knowledge. Such a spiritual master should be accepted in full surrender, and one should serve the spiritual master like a menial servant, without false prestige. Satisfaction of the self-realized spiritual master is the secret of advancement in spiritual life. Inquiries and submission constitute the proper combination for spiritual understanding. Unless there is submission and service, inquiries from the learned spiritual master will not be effective. One must be able to pass the test of the spiritual master, and when he sees the genuine desire of the disciple, he automatically blesses the disciple with genuine spiritual understanding. In this verse, both blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. One should not only hear submissively from the spiritual master, but one must also get a clear understanding from him, in submission and service and inquiries. A bona fide spiritual master is by nature very kind toward the disciple. Therefore, when the student is submissive and is always ready to render service, the reciprocation of knowledge and inquiries becomes perfect.
Question on this verse? Very important verse. Main thing is we can't figure it out by ourselves. It's too complex. It's transcendental. It's not even within our reach. And some people feel, if they're told that, they feel insulted. My intelligence, you don't know how intelligent I am. I'm very intelligent. You may be very intelligent, but even Brahma needs a spiritual master. And we're not as intelligent as Brahma. He was a great thinker, engineer of the universe. But even he had to accept Govindamari Purusham Tamam Jami. Even he says that Sarva Karana Karanam, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha, Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. He worships Krishna, who is the cause of all causes, the original person, the supreme controller above all other controllers. Therefore, Krishna is the spiritual master of Brahma and Shiva and the Kumaras and Lakshmi, the four Vaishnava Sampradayas. And the impersonalists, Mayavadis, they don't accept these personalities, really. They may give a little appreciation, but they don't really accept any of those, because all those four are pure devotees. Shiva, Brahma, Lakshmi, and the Kumaras. If they really believe them, then they would follow their footsteps. If you really trust someone, then you follow them. So that's the idea, that one should see the spiritual master, how he's living, how he acts, how he speaks, Arjuna asked that question. How does a self-realized person speak? What does he do? How does he sit? So we should examine that, see. And if we see that this person is using his time fully for serving Krishna and helping other living entities get free from Maya. Maya means illusion, thinking I am this material body, and everything that I see can become mine. I'm the Lord of all I survey. This is mine. That's illusion, because how can it be ours as soon as when we leave, we have to leave it all behind. What do we leave back? What do we leave behind? We leave all the things we thought we owned. My body even. Even my body I have to leave behind. My wife, my home, even my reputation. But I take my karma. That I take with me. I take the reactions for what I did, for my deeds. But everything else, even memory is lost. I lose my memory. I can't even remember, take the memory with me. I think, well, I have to go, but at least I can have the memories. No. If you say the next life, you take the body of a dog. Dog doesn't remember what he was doing in his last life. So, but he gets the karma. So that's Maya. To be in that cycle of birth and death and acting out a false show of who we really are. Make believe, I'm making believe I'm this person. And I'm doing so many things, and I'm the lead character in the whole drama. Everyone's my cast. They're supposed to help me, and this is Maya. I think. Next text.
And when you have thus learned the truth, you will know that all living beings are but part of me, and that they are in me and are mine. Purport. The result of receiving knowledge from a self-realized soul, or one who knows things as they are, is learning that all living beings are part and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. The sense of a separated existence from Krishna is called Maya. Ma, not. Ya, this. Some think that we have nothing to do with Krishna, that Krishna is only a great historical personality, and that the Absolute is the impersonal Brahman. Factually, as it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, this impersonal Brahman is the personal effulgence of Krishna. Krishna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the cause of everything. In the Brahma Samhita, it is clearly stated that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes. Even the millions of incarnations are only his different expansions. Similarly, the living entities are also expansions of Krishna. The Mayavadi philosophers wrongly think that Krishna loses his own separate existence in his many expansions.
They think in a material way. Like if there's a piece of paper and you cut up the piece of paper and you give out all the pieces, then they say there's no paper left. It doesn't exist. But that's a material example. Because on the spiritual platform, Om Purnamadat Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishate. Even though so many complete units may be taken, but because it's spiritual, it's the Purnam, it's not diminished. It's something like, we get an example with a digital copy. Formerly we had the other type of copying, music. What's the other kind of? Yeah, what's it called? Analog, yeah. So analog, it was a good way of copying, but it wasn't perfect because every generation of copies lost a little bit of the original. But digital is so much appreciated because somehow or other it apparently keeps the original intact. I know there may be some discussion about that, but that's the principle anyway, that it's digitally, and it doesn't lose anything. Even though you can make 1,000 copies, like on my computer somehow or other, I don't know why, on my media player, I've got 10,000 copies of myself chanting japa. I don't know how it got so many there. But they all sound the same, and the original, you can't tell the original from the other. So that's same idea. Krishna is one, but even though he expands, Eko Bahu Nam, Eko Bahu Sham, he expands into many. He's not diminished. He's still complete. That's spiritual. If you can even do that with a digital recording, then why can't Krishna do that? Completely spiritual. Yeah, all the parts and parcels, Mahayavangso, Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. They're his parts and parcels. They're part of him. That's our original transcendental nature, always. We're part of Krishna. As he's spiritual, we're also spiritual. As we have some consciousness, he has consciousness. But how can the part become the whole? What kind of logic is that? Where have you ever seen that the part becomes the whole? And then they give a very weak analogy. They say, well, when a drop of water is put into the ocean, it becomes the whole ocean. That's ridiculous. That's completely ridiculous. The drop becomes the whole ocean. Becomes one with the ocean. Becomes one little part of the ocean. Same thing when it was outside the ocean. Becomes a little part with some atoms, water molecules, or whatever you call them. That's not a very good example. The part doesn't become the whole. The whole is made up of all the parts. And in this case, not only is all the parts, but still Krishna is superior to everything else put together. He's unique. He's personal. That's Bhagavad realization.
Srila Prabhupada says that the Mayavadis say that Krishna becomes covered by Maya, and I was just wondering, what does that mean?
Yeah, they say living entities were all Krishna, but we forgot. Somehow or other we're under the illusion of Maya, and now all of us Narayans, we're all Narayan. Narayan means God. We somehow or other forgot, but when we become self-realized again by studying Vedanta, then we realize, now I'm Narayan. That's ridiculous. How can Narayan be covered over by Maya? That would make Maya greater than Narayan. after they supposedly become, when one takes sannyas, among the Mayavadis they say, Namo Narayan. When they greet him, they say, I offer my respects to you, Narayan. And the other Narayan says, I offer my respects to you too, Narayan. How can they both be, how can there be one if they're offering respects to each other? Why don't you just offer respects to yourself? Why do you bother offering respects to him? Okay.
Should I keep reading?
Yeah.
The Mayavadi philosophers wrongly think that Krishna loses his own separate existence in his many expansions. This thought is material in nature. We have experience in the material world that a thing, when fragmentally distributed, loses its own original identity. But the Mayavadi philosophers fail to understand that absolute means that 1 plus 1 is equal to 1, and that 1 minus 1 is also equal to 1. This is the case in the absolute world. For want of sufficient knowledge in the absolute science, we are now covered with illusion, and therefore we think that we are separate from Krishna. Although we are separated parts of Krishna, we are nevertheless not different from him. The bodily difference of the living entities is Maya, or not actual fact. We are all meant to satisfy Krishna. By Maya alone, Arjuna thought that the temporary bodily relationship with his kinsman was more important than his eternal spiritual relationship with Krishna. The whole teaching of the Gita is targeted toward this end, that a living being, as his eternal servitor, cannot be separate from Krishna, and his sense of being an identity apart from Krishna is called Maya. The living entities, as separate parts and parcels of the Supreme, have a purpose to fulfill. Having forgotten that purpose, since time immemorial, they are situated in different bodies as men, animals, demigods, etc. Such bodily differences arise from forgetfulness of the transcendental service of the Lord. When one is engaged in transcendental service through Krishna consciousness, one becomes at once liberated from this illusion. One can acquire such pure knowledge only from the bona fide spiritual master, and thereby avoid the delusion that the living entity is equal to Krishna. Perfect knowledge is that the Supreme Soul Krishna is the supreme shelter for all living entities. In giving up such shelter, the living entities are deluded by the material energy, imagining themselves to have a separate identity. Thus, under different standards of material identity, they become forgetful of Krishna. When, however, such deluded living entities become situated in Krishna consciousness, it is to be understood that they are on the path of liberation, as confirmed in the Bhagavatam, Muktir hit banyata rupam swarupena vyavastiti. Liberation means to be situated in one's constitutional position as the eternal servitor of Krishna, Krishna consciousness.
Haribol. Thank you very much. Bhagavad Gita.
Jai.